Emotion is a scalar, not a vector. This is something I was thinking about today, and it just kind of popped into my head. But first, what does it mean? What is a scalar and what's a vector? So let me quickly go over that and do crash, a crash course in math and physics as far as vectors and scalars. So they're both showing that something has acted or something has happened, or let's say there's a force. All right, there's a force acting, and therefore you can represent it with a scalar or a vector, right? So like if somebody pushes someone else or collides with someone else, you could say that's a force, right? So you can do a scalar or a vector for that, which just shows the magnitude or the size of that force. The difference would be that a vector also adds direction, whereas a scalar is just the size of the force, okay? So a scalar just shows something happened, something's going on, but the vector is adding the piece of saying which direction is it moving in? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it light? Is it dark? Is it up or is it down? All that directionality that's kind of adding detail and adding qualification and adding mumbo jumbo in the background, that is in the vector. The scalar is just saying, hey, something's going on. So in human emotions, if something happens or you're just walking along and you get triggered somehow, you're talking to someone and it rubs you the wrong way, you get a bad impression from the conversation, or you are all stressed out because you have a lot of work to do, or you're just getting in a disagreement with someone, or you're having a relationship problem, whatever it might be. When that emotion rises up inside you and you start going into your old patterns, your behaviors, maybe it's your addictions, whatever, that right there is the sign that something has been triggered. And so if we just stop and we look at it as an event, we would say, okay, there's a scalar force that's happening in like this physics sense, as I'm using this metaphor, meaning there's something going on. All right. Now, what we normally do, though, it's almost impossible to resist until you see what you're doing, is we make it into a vector and we assume, okay, something just happened, but now I know which direction it's coming from, which direction it's going, and what I need to do. So this can happen in all kinds of sneaky, tricky ways. But if all of a sudden you're stressed out and you happen to be someone with a drinking problem and you say, you know what, I really need to drink tonight, I need to do it, okay? Something's already triggered you. Let's say your boss was yelling at you at work, or let's just say that, I don't know, you're feeling uncomfortable about something, or you're bored, you're lonely. Something triggered you and you get this strong turmoil of emotions. Most likely you don't even know where those emotions are exactly coming from and what they all mean individually, but there's this whole like jumbled mass inside of you that can often feel like this burning sensation in your heart. And then from there, you just feel like, I know what I need to do. I need to drink tonight. You will immediately start rationalizing. You'll tell yourself why that's actually the best decision for you, why the most authentic version of you needs to be drinking right now, you know, why it's a good idea. I mean, sometimes you just say fuck it and you don't give a shit and you just do it, especially if it's an impulsive behavior. But the longer term something is, if you've been struggling with something, like you've been struggling with alcoholism, you probably have all these stories and scripts in your head about why you need to do it and why it's important to do it, you know? So you could see that with something like an addiction. Or another example that might be a little bit less kind of an impulse related thing would be something like, let's say that you've really been having a difficult month, and all of a sudden you start getting this idea that you want to quit your job. And you say, yes, I want to quit my job, okay? And this example might be a little bit more relatable to a lot of people because, again, it's more of a broad-based kind of thing. You might be able to identify with some aspect to this where something's been bothering you, something isn't working, and you say you want to make a change. So we're saying, let's say you want to make a change with your job and you want to quit the job. And something, again, has already triggered you emotionally. You're very uncomfortable. You're getting a lot of anxiety, or you find yourself really depressed lately. you're losing interest in the things that you normally like to do. And so what you do is you say, you start all of a sudden drafting up this email that you're going to send to the company, how you're going to quit your job. And then all of a sudden you're looking at flights to Santiago, Chile. You're looking at flights to South Africa. You're looking at flights to, I don't know, Tokyo. You're looking at flights to Wichita, Kansas. I don't really know. Just like somewhere where you're going to go travel, and you're going to sell your car. You're going to sell your house. You're just going to quit the job. You're going to change everything in your life. Next thing you know, you're looking at documentaries, you're reading books, you're reading blogs about people who have decided to upend their lives and quit their job and just like leave everything behind, and how amazing it is and how liberating it is. And you become utterly convinced that this is the course of action for you. You become completely persuaded that the best thing, in fact, the only thing you can do to preserve your sanity and your authenticity and who you are, is to just like cancel your whole life and start over again. And the first step for that has to be quitting your job. You have to do it. And it just becomes truth to you, like overnight. It just becomes gospel. Like you know that that's the right course of action. And so that might be true for someone else, right? Which is why you were able to find blog posts about it. And there have been books written about this kind of thing, and movies. What was that one movie? I didn't even see it, based on a book. I think starring Reese Witherspoon. I think Wild or something. I didn't watch this movie. I'm not even sure that's exactly what happens in this movie, but it came to mind, so I think it might be related. I don't know. I'm not even sure that's like a happy movie, but let's just say that you come across all these ideas about like totally revolutionizing your life, and so like I'm saying, and you have all these ideas that for other people it's a good idea, you know. And that's because there are people out there and situations out there where this is a really healthy thing, and it can be difficult and challenging, but it's a step in the right direction. And so, yeah, of course, if you go in with the belief that this is what you need to do and you need to just like reboot your whole life and quit your job, then if all you need to do is find evidence that that's a good course of action for some people some of the time, you will find that evidence, right? You can justify that decision. All right. Just like an alcoholic can justify the decision why tonight they really do need to drink. Like, yeah. Sometimes drinking's bad. Okay, I get it. Sometimes you don't want to go for the bottle. But tonight, no, I really need to tonight. It would be disingenuous of me not to drink tonight. You know, you can actually get into these thought loops where that will be truth to you. You know, this is all the same issue. And it has to do with thinking that you know what's going on inside yourself, when in reality, all that's happened is there's been a massive emotional flare-up, and all this dust has been kicked up in a dust storm, all right? And you're the one that's looking at millions and billions of individual dust particles in the air, like literally a cloud of dust that's risen up, excuse me, and you're looking at all the dust particles and you're saying, oh, all those dust particles, I know exactly what they mean. All those dust particles together, that's actually a picture of a unicorn. That's actually a picture of letters telling me quit your job. That's actually some elaborate sign of why I need to do XYZ course of action. You know, but there's no rhyme or reason to what you're seeing for the moment. It's all the dust has been kicked up. You know, it's all cloudy. But what happens is you look at that cloud, that mirage, that illusion, and you tell yourself you know exactly what it means and what it says. Why? Because in that moment, you think that this emotion is a vector instead of a scalar. You think that this emotion has a directionality and it's pushing you towards something, and you jump on that train thinking that's what truth is. Okay? What actually happened is that your belief systems and your patterns of your psyche and of your ego have been activated. Those belief systems are there as a result of one or more lifetimes of difficulty, of trauma, of anxiety, of stress. And the mind, the ego, that we ask to do way more than it really is capable of doing, it's basically just a computer, and it analyzes things and it computes things, and it doesn't even observe. It takes in the observations and tries to make some kind of an order of it. You know, the ego in the mind is just really a servant to the rest of your higher attributes. You're asking that ego then to give you the answer to this question. And the question is, why the hell am I so in so much pain? Because you've been triggered, the pain has come up. Like I said, you probably don't know what the pain is from or how it got there, but you know I'm in pain in this moment. And then the dust cloud is kicked up, and very quickly you start saying, I need an answer, I need an answer, I need an answer. And your mind says, okay, I have an answer. And all it's done is it's gone into the archives of all the shit you've been through and the very best attempts that the mind can make in order to bring in a semblance of order in a chaotic experience, right? So the mind is coming in and saying, well, in situations where we don't have a lot of control or we perceive ourselves to be powerless, this is what we can do. And the mind, the ego, brings out the blueprints and the designs and the scaffolding and the obligations and the necessities. And if we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do that. If X, then Y. If A, then B. We can't do this because otherwise that. It's basically encyclopedias and Bibles full of rules and regulations and inner codes that you have to adhere to and all these assumptions and presumptions about life and about the world. It's like literally a warehouse full of archive information that's coming from all the shit you've been through. And the mind has done its very best, like I said, to create some kind of structure for you to help you get through another minute, another day, another hour, what have you. Okay? When I say that you assume that the emotions are giving you a vector, you assume that in this massive sense of turmoil on the inside, there's some clear answer. It's like you search in the dark and you see some kind of a portal or a doorway and you say, aha, that's it. And you want to charge and rush as fast as you can through that doorway. Okay? That doorway, though, and this is so hard to realize and it's painful, that doorway isn't given by God. That's not any necessary sign of truth. That doorway is just the open door that your mind is pointing out to you as, hey, this is the best we can do, boss. Like, I hope this helps you. This is just the best you can do to make sense of your chaos. All right? If you were to actually go through, if you were to take off the emotional triggers and you were to take some deep breaths, and I'm not saying this like this is what you should do, because this is really freaking hard to do, and it's filled with more pitfalls than you can imagine. That's why, you look for an easy answer without even knowing that you're doing it, because to actually go through the more painstaking process is so hard. But that process would look like kind of very gently and meticulously untangling this mass of wires that would show what's the nature of this emotional trigger that you're under. What was it that stressed you out to begin with? Was it something at work? Do you think in this scenario of all of a sudden I've got to quit my job and sell my possessions? Was it something at work that triggered this? I mean, are you responding to an issue you have at the workplace? Are you responding to a genuine sense of not liking what you're doing? Maybe really what's happened is you were triggered by something that has nothing to do with your job at all. Maybe it has to do with your relationship. Maybe it has to do with your kids. Maybe it has to do with your inner child's issues, something that's unresolved from when you were 4 years old. That it's not really related to what's going on right now at work. You've just been putting this off and haven't been able to take a hard look at it. Or maybe it's something else altogether. So we immediately tell ourselves we know what's going on, like I said, to introduce a sense of order, an illusion that we have some self-mastery here. But again, if we were to really piece through what we're suffering from, the story probably is very different from what we're saying. So the best we can do is say, hold on, any sense of movement and motion and like, I have to do this now, I can't do that. If I do A, B will definitely happen. If I don't do A, then definitely B won't, whatever it is. Or if I won't do B, then A won't, not to get into logic now, but whatever rules and guidelines you immediately conjure up, understand, hold on, that's all coming from this very stressed mind, this problem solver that's trying to do way more than it can do. Let's just try to de-escalate as best we can and understand that there's really only one thing we know right now. We don't know what to do. We don't know what this means. We don't know what has started this inner hailstorm. We don't know who's to blame. We don't know, who's good, who's bad, what's up, what's down. We don't know any of that direction. All we know is that something has triggered us. I know that word is kind of overused, but sometimes it works. Something has caused that fire to surge into our heart space. Something has brought on that deep sense of pain and that wounding. Something has taken us from 0 to 60, okay? Something has put us into that parasympathetic state. And just recognize that that's where you are. And it's much easier said than done, but try to relax from there. Try to de-escalate. And when you can, go to some of your methods that hopefully you've been working on. Go to a little bit of a meditation, do some journaling, talk to a friend or a therapist or a family member that you can, confide in. Bounce ideas off the wall. Or, hey, just go have some fun for an evening, hopefully in a non-destructive way. Just relax and understand I'm not in a place to make sense of this now. I'm not going to do anything rash. I'm going to come back to this in a couple days. If that's what feels like it's the best idea right now. Just understand that you don't know what this is all about. Because if you've been really triggered and flared up, most likely you really don't know what it's all about. The best you can do is to get to a place where you can very gently start to untangle the mess. Because all that's happened is you have a mess inside and you don't really know what it's all about, okay? So those are some tips. Those are some ideas. I think this is a really cool way to understand it. Just any sense of knowing what the direction is going to be coming from an illusion of what your next step should be or how you need to act. You need to pull yourself away from that brink and understand that emotions are much more of a scalar. They don't have that direction. It's just like a massive explosion in the dark. And you need to go inwards first to simply sit with that explosion and to walk calmly into that sense of explosion rather than letting that explosion push you in one set direction right off the bat.